it will be appropriate to stand. The first occasion is during the arrival of the official party and playing of ruffles and flourishes. Everyone is reminded to face the presiding officer in the front. The next occasion is during the singing of our national anthem. Military members are reminded to assume the position of attention, while civilians are reminded to place their right hand over their heart. The next occasion is during the presentation of the Prisoner of War Medal. And finally, at the end of the ceremony, you will be asked to stand one last time and join in the singing of the United States Air Force song. Please stand for the arrival of our presiding officer, General Robin Rand, Commander, Air Education and Training Command, and Lieutenant Colonel, United States Air Force Retired, Timothy Squirnina, and remain standing for the playing of ruffles and flourishes and singing of our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. You now may be seated. At this time, we would like to take a moment to recognize some of the distinguished visitors in attendance with us today. Although time will not permit us to recognize everyone individually, we do thank you for attending. Please hold your applause until all have been recognized. First, we would like to welcome Lieutenant Colonel Squirnina's family, his wife, Mrs. Carol, his son, Stephen, his daughter, Elizabeth, his sister, Gail, and her husband, Gary Maycroft, his sister Carrie and her husband, Dr. Kevin Funk, and his nephew, Lieutenant Colonel Christopher Kobe. The other distinguished visitor we have with us today is the commander, 502nd Air Base Wing and Joint Base San Antonio, Brigadier General Robert D. Labruto. And finally, we would like to extend a warm welcome to all guests of Lieutenant Colonel Squirnina, especially the Hill Country Retreat Veterans Group.
Right on.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we now ask our presiding officer, General Robin Rand, to please come forward.
I want to introduce these two grandchildren. You two stand up too. Okay, we got some grandchildren. Well, thank you everyone for being here. Bob, I always like to defer to the commander of Joint Base San Antonio for the opportunity to do this. He set me on this path, I don't know, a couple months ago, and I said I'd be honored to be here and participate in today's long overdue recognition of a hero. And thank you, Bob. But more importantly, thanks for your leadership. You got a good voice. How's Steve doing? Okay, what do you think of that national anthem? You know, I get to do a lot of great things in this job. I really do. And I get to do important things. But I'll tell you one thing. Can you all hear me, by the way? I think they have a mic. But I'll probably not do anything this week more important than what I'm doing right now. So this is just really amazing. And I think my dad used to warn me that as you get older, you get more sentimental and a little more emotional. So if I get a little emotional, please understand that. It's important that we pause and reflect on our heritage. And I was telling the family, the Square-Nina family earlier, that particularly to these young grandchildren, that 71 years ago seems like ancient history, doesn't it, to them? But really, it's just a drop in the bucket of time. And that this happened in our lifetimes, you know, and that there are people in this room who knew the hero we're going to talk about. It puts it in perspective, doesn't it? And that we get to be part of it. So this is where we get to make history come alive, and it's not just something written in the history books. So today, for a few minutes, we're all going to be able to have history come alive for us and reflect on what that means. So bear with me as we get through this. I want to thank Tim very much for the opportunity to do this, in your dogged spirit to make this happen. Bless you. Your father, I bet, is incredibly grateful and proud of you. So to the entire Square-Nina family, awesome. Glad you could be here. I really mean that. I already mentioned Bob. We thank you, Bob, for that. To the members of the Hill Country Retreat Veterans Group, way to go. Thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing this with us. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Colonel Square-Nina's spouse, Lou, who couldn't be with us today. She's up in Lubbock. But she was a big part of our hero's life for many years, and so we'll remember her. At events like this, it's always a little difficult. What do you talk about when you're reciting these things? And what do I say about a long overdue medal that was earned over 71 years ago, as I mentioned? A medal that was earned after a mission in hostile skies over German in an occupied France that took a turn for the worst. A medal earned after subsequent captivity and deplorable conditions in a POW camp in Switzerland. They just didn't want to call it a POW camp. We'll hear the citation, and I really want you to pay close attention when they read the citation. It'll impress you. It's a citation that outlines then Lieutenant Square-Nina's incredible story on his first combat mission. Sometimes you don't have the best of days. You go out on your first mission, and it was his last mission in combat, at least flying mission. He had other missions, but his first and last flying mission, he became interred and captured. So before we do that, let's reflect on the significance of the medal that reminds us of the sacrifices that POWs, prisoner of wars, made to serve our nation with heroism and honor. It's a medal that on its face reminds us that is rewarded for honorable service while a prisoner of war. I'm going to tell you up front, I think the term hero is overused slightly. Most World War II veterans that I have met get very uncomfortable when you describe them as a hero. My father was a World War II veteran, and I know he didn't like that term. I would tell you there's no singular definition for hero. You can look it up and you'll see different definitions. But the one I've adopted in my life is a hero is someone who in the face of danger displays courage and puts service before self for the greater good of humanity. So it certainly isn't limited just to people in the military, is it? Those firefighters and our defenders.